Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome back to another quick draft of Duskmourn here in the couple weeks of variety drafts leading up to the launch of Final Fantasy. Without further ado, let's get into the Pack 1, Pick 1. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very tempted, but we just did that one draft ago, and it didn't work super well. It doesn't work super well most of the time, but it is a really fun thing to try, and the best way to do it is to do it pack one, pick one. That is your best chance of actually pulling off a Marina deck super well. So it would be really, really fun, but we've already done that deck. Let's not do the same deck twice in a row here. We've got two incredible uncommons in this pack. The Razorkin Horde color is fantastic at the top end of any aggressive red deck's curve, and there are some good aggro decks in the format, particularly Boros, but even Rakdos plays somewhat aggressively, and Gruul quite aggressively, so I do really like Razorkin Horde color. I'm a little partial to this card because I've used it a lot in some of the more competitive events. But Under the Skin is super, super good for the grindy green decks as well. That is another great 2 for 1, 3 mana for a 2/2 off of the Manifest Red ability, and you get to draw a card, returning your best permanent from grave to hand. So Under the Skin is great too, but I'd like to play something more aggressive today. We haven't played a red deck this return to Duskmourn. We've done blue-white, 5-color. The 5-color deck was basically blue-green, so blue-white, blue-green, and then now go for a red aggro deck this time around. Maybe Rakdos because we haven't played any black, or Boros. Whatever looks open here for a good aggro deck. Pick number 2. There's Trapped in the Screen towards Boros, Withering Torment towards Rakdos, Fear of Isolation towards blue-red. Blue-red Rooms is fun. It's one of the less consistent decks to try to get it to come together, so it doesn't play quite as well as just like Rakdos or Boros. Honestly, Withering Torment and Trapped in the Screen are pretty equivalent in power level. I think I'm going to lean towards Withering Torment for variety's sake, since we've done a blue-white deck here, because they're very, very comparable picks, and it works out well for us getting a Nowhere to Run to go with that. This card's great in Rakdos. It's great in a lot of decks because it's got a lot of synergies where it's a 2-mana -3/-3 removal spell. You can cast it instant speed, already good. And then if you can sacrifice it for value later, which is something that Rakdos can do, that's good. If you're in blue and you can bounce it, pick it up with something like Unnerving Grasp to recast it, that's also good. And if you're in white and you care about eerie triggers, you care about enchantments entering the battlefield, that's also good. So another really good pack, Unnerving Grasp and Nowhere to Run. Blue just had two really, really strong uncommons passed in a row, so that is certainly something to keep in mind. Pick number 4, we've got Solid Green with Monstrous Emergence or Threats Around Every Corner for a green removal spell and then a green ramp spell. Solid Blue again with the Solid Blue removal spell. Just an okay black card, Murder, one of the less efficient removal spells than the two we've already taken. Or a filler Razorkin. This rare is not very good. Each player drawing 2 cards means it's giving your opponent just as much benefit as you, which is just bad. I think seeing 2 really nice blue uncommons passed in a row, I want to stay open to the colors, so I'm going to take the Stay Hidden, Stay Silent here. Although I'm not the biggest fan of blue-black as an archetype. Pick number 5, now we have Glassworks for a great red removal spell. Also gets a bunch of damage in later with Shattered Yard. That's the best card in this pack. Happy to take it. Pick number 6, Clockwork Percussionist is nice for any aggressive red deck. In Rakdos, obviously you get some sacrifice value off this card, but just trading off with it, or even chump attacking with it later is good. Gets your early damage in, and then it makes sure to replace itself later when it's no longer useful. Pick 7, Killer's Mask is fine. It's a little bit filler. The problem that I have with it is that in the Rakdos decks, everything that can sacrifice a card for value in this format sacrifices a creature or an enchantment. Does not sacrifice artifacts. So the mask getting left behind after your manifesting isn't really that good. A 2-mana to equip menace equipment. It's not the greatest, so I'm actually just going to speculate on Soul Rager here. We're probably not doing blue-red rooms, but even if I am Rakdos, I'm not going to be excited about Cultist or Killer's Mask. Pick number 8, Most Valuable Slayer, I will be excited about. It's great with a big beefy creature like Horde Collar, but it also plays really well with a couple specific uncommons, the main one being the 3 mana 4/2 Fear of Being Hunted that forces your opponent to block it. So if you force your opponent to block your first strikers, that can be particularly gross. More solid filler Rakdos cards going nice and late. Looks like we should be fine to stick to Rakdos here, but we'll see what we open in pack number 2. Opened an incredible white rare. A second most valuable Slayer is the best on-color card because Defiled Crypt and Cadaver Lab's pretty mana inefficient and the other commons are just borderline unplayable that are on color. I think Toby is a strong enough rare, a 1/1 and a 4/4 for only 3 mana, and the downside on the 4/4 is pretty insignificant. So the stat line really does feel close to that. I think Toby is a strong enough rare to speculate on here, even though he's quite unlikely to make the cuts. But it's possible we get cut off of black. I really only have 2 premium black spells, right? Nowhere to Run and Withering Torment. We took both of these early. This was like pick 2 and pick 3, as far as I remember. And these are super filler. So the stuff that was actually really good that we got late was like a Glassworks, Slayer. It was the red being deeper, so maybe this is a draft pod we can pivot to Boros off this Toby. So I will speculate towards that. So I think the safest picks then, with the way this draft has gone, are definitely the red picks. I do think Surgical Suite and Hospital Room is great in the aggressive Boros decks. Reanimate your cheap creature, get some extra +1/+1 counters with the Hospital Room. But Piggy Bank is a card that can fit into our blue-red rooms deck, our red-black sacrifice deck, or our red-white aggro deck. So I think we take red cards over off-color cards unless they're considerably weaker. So let's take the Piggy Bank here for that flexibility of being able to be put into any of the decks, because now there are no good white cards in this pack and no good red cards, so instead we take another speculation towards Rakdos with a good top-end card for that deck, or another speculation towards blue-red rooms with another room for that deck. The blue-red rooms deck, in my opinion, plays a lot better as a more controlling deck, playing a ton of removal spell style rooms and late-game cards that are like, for each room you have unlocked, you get that big of a flyer. So if you have like 8 rooms unlocked, you get an 8/8 flyer. Rather than one that's actually like using a bunch of aggressive creatures like we have out of our red. So I think with Meatlocker, Drowned Diner, and Vile Mutilator being relatively comparable in power level, our red is slightly more synergistic to our black than our blue, so that leads to the black being the kind of pick here. Now a Clockwork Percussionist is great no matter what we end up in red, but the other option is Final Vengeance for good removal. Luckily, if I end up in black, I've already got tons, not tons, but a decent amount, 3 great removal spells already. Don't think I need another one less than halfway into pack 2. Pick number 5. Look, we'll get it anyway. Nice late Withering Torment there. I'll take that over Glimmerlight. That's the fiercest competition. But now it looks like we're almost definitely Rakdos. Sad day, though, because that is the exact room I was talking about for what you really want to be doing with your blue-red rooms decks. That is the card that gets me really committed to that deck, not the card like the Soul Rager. So sad to see that, but still pretty happy with where we're at. This looks like a very strong start to a Rakdos deck, getting a Cynical Loner in now. Pick 7. The Popular Egotist has some solid Rakdos synergies. Obviously, it's your kind of sacrifice outlet there, and as you're sacrificing your cards for whatever reason, you're draining your opponents. Here's Final Vengeance for that late removal. Sack a Percussionist or a room that is no longer doing anything, or if we're really lucky, sack a Nowhere to room that literally doesn't do anything after it hits the board. Pick 9's a very bad pack. I'm going to hold down the Alt key to double check how many I own of all these cards, but as we already have a full place of everything, I'll rare draft an uncommon for Vault Progress. Pick number 10, Fanatic of the Harrowing is fine. In this archetype, it has a good enter effect, and then it's an okay creature to sack later because it already got decent enter value. Some random land cyclers I prefer to cut in this format. Same with the Fear of the Dark. I prefer to cut that by the end of the draft. What do we got? Pack 3, pick 1. This is not a bad deck for Waltz of Rage, but I'm a pretty big fan of Fear of Burning Alive as well. So this is fierce competition. Fear of Burning Alive is a large threat that gets 4 damage in immediately no matter what. And if you have Delirium, also deals 4 damage to one of your opponent's creatures. So if you have Delirium, this is a really, really good Flame Tongue Kavu style creature that hits the board, removes your opponent's threat. And this one also pings them too, so I am a big fan of that. But Waltz of Rage in the right hand on the right board state can completely flip a game in your favor. We have multiple Razorkins that were a little bit filler. They were going to be some of our first cuts, but if we pick up a Waltz of Rage, there's going to have major synergy with that card to be able to deal 5 to everything else on the board, and then draw you a bunch of cards for any of your own creatures that you've killed. Waltz of Rage can really flip a game in your favor, and I'm going to go for that with double Ripchain Razorkins to go with it, the Horde Caller for a 4-power creature. Even our 3-drops are all 3 power, even 3 damage to all creatures can be pretty big, so try out some Waltz of Rage stuff here. Pack 3, pick 2, love me a Glassworks Shattered Yard, although Innocuous Rat is also quite nice in this deck. I'm going to take the Glassworks there. Pack 3, pick 3. Another Glassworks is pretty sick, but do I have room for it is the question. We want to be relatively aggressive here, ideally, so let's say like 17 creatures, 6 non-creatures. That would be our 23 non-lands. That's then a 17 land deck. So when you count up our non-creatures, they're all incredibly high quality already. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 non-creature spells. So if I play a 16 creature deck, I already have all my non-creature spells. So that means I don't really have room for Glassworks. If I take Glassworks, we're probably just playing it over Final Vengeance, just swapping that around. I definitely have room for the Piggy Bank because none of our non-creature spells are super filler. The most filler of them is Final Vengeance, but multiple of our creatures are pretty filler cards. I would like to swap into something else if possible. Even the Baelmerk Leech to an extent, so we have a lot of room to improve our creatures, not a lot of room to improve our non-creature spells. Let's start improving the creatures this pack. Pick 4, another Glassworks. I guess we take that here because there are no creatures to improve the deck with. And we can consider running it over Final Vengeance, or if we don't get enough good creatures, then we can consider running a like 15 creature deck. It's still a pretty aggressive count. Gets a little more mid-rangey at that point, but Rakdos plays a really nice mid-range game too. Pick 6 is unfortunately nothing I'm interested in, so I'm just going to rare draft an uncommon for Vault Progress. Pick 7. Would I play another Most Valuable Slayer over any of these cards? Or another Amalgam over any of these? I mean, one of the cards I'm thinking of cutting is Amalgam, so cut an Amalgam for an Amalgam. I want to go 17 lands and run the 7-drop Mutilator, I think. So we cut another card here. And then I think I'd play an Appendage Amalgam over Fanatic of the Harrowing. I'd also play a Slayer over Fanatic of the Harrowing. Yeah, we'll play another Slayer over Fanatic. It plays pretty well with the Razorkin. Pick number 8. Just a Final Vengeance, no other options here really. Although this goes immediately to the sideboard. Because I don't really care about it. Don't really have room for it. And it looks like this is where our deck is going to end up here. These 23 non-land cards, but it's a fine spot to end up. Very solid looking Rakdos deck. We'll call it a deck there and just hop straight into the gameplay. Kind of built this deck at the start of pack 3 so that we knew if we should take creatures or non-creatures there. So our deck is ready. Let's get in that gameplay. All right, here we are for game 1 on the draw. We have a decent hand here. If we trade the piggy bank off or they end up shooting it with something, then we do actually curve out 2-drop and then 2 4-drops in a row. We get one of them out with the treasure token on turn 3. If the piggy bank sticks around or it gets exiled, then we don't have a turn 3 play though. Optimistic Scavenger. Alright, they're the blue-white menace, the strongest archetype of the format, starting with one of the best uncommons in the whole set. That is terrifying. And then one of the best rares in the whole set that is really good for the archetype. I'm going to have to Final Vengeance the Enduring Innocence, I think. 2-for-1 myself to stop that, because if I don't, that card is going to more than 2-for-1 me. Because every creature they play for the rest of the game is going to draw them a card. So we'll just bite the bullet now, spend 2 cards to kill their 1, so that we don't end up over time with them drawing 3 or 4 extra cards off this. As soon as this card draws them 1 card, we've already been 2-for-1 by it. So we're kind of locked into going down in card advantage to that either way. Alright, let's Glassworks the Scavenger unless they have the uncommon hexproof trick here. I have the mana for the counterspell up. They don't have the uncommon hexproof trick, so that feels good. Cursed Windbreaker. Depending on what they manifest, that can be pretty scary. Right now it's just a 2/2 flyer, but if it was a particularly big creature on top, they flip it up and have an even bigger flyer. We're under a lot of pressure right now. I've got the mana to pay for the counterspell still, whatever card I play. Slayer's a better blocker, but Razorkin lets me start sacking lands and trying to dig to something faster. I mean, I'm not really doing any attacks right now, and I'm going to play both of these before I start sacking lands. Let's just get the Slayer down first. Unable to scream? Cool. Rather have that be cast on my Slayer than my Razorkin, because we're a little flooded right now, so the ability to sack these lands and draw cards is pretty valuable to me. Oh wait, this thing has reach. As you can tell, I have not cast a lot of copies of Rip Chain Razorkin in my life. I guess Razorkin was the better blocker, but it was still a good thing I did in this sequence, because now there is a chance that I could actually block their flyer. And there was no chance previously. Alright, our buddy resolves. Here's our Percussionist. We've got the 2 mana up for the counterless we pay 2 still. So that resolves to pass. Wouldn't be insane to attack with Percussionist there, but they probably just take the 1 instead of letting me draw 1. Which is not what I want here. Oh boy. 4/5 flyer. Not good for me. Yeah, and it's big enough to make this Horde Caller draw useless too. 4/4 body is not big enough. I've got a good chunk of removal in this deck. I have Double Torment, Waltz of Rage, 2 more Glassworks still in there. I think I need to be trying to draw into that. So let's go like swing with Percussionist. The 1/1 Gremlins are nice. I don't think they're good enough to play this pre-combat when I could instead have all that mana up in case I draw like Waltz of Rage, like a 5 mana spell that really matters. And they could also just not block here. I guess there's that. In which case the mana doesn't matter. 5, 6, 7. I do have 8 mana. I could sack a land, draw a card, and also play Horde Caller if I don't draw anything relevant. Certainly not anything relevant. I'm probably desperate enough right now to play Cynical Loner and sack another land. Because we're dying in the sky pretty fast. I kind of have to trade Razorkin into the spirits here. No way, they top deck the +1/+1 for the spirits now. That's disgusting. Because now I can't block it. We have to hit Withering Torment, like, immediately. But I guess now on the plus side, I don't have to lose the Razorkin yet. Because the block is just not worth it. That is the worst draw because it's 7 mana. That feels bad after sacking all these lands. We die so fast in the sky here. They've only got 2 attackers on the ground. I mean, they're just never blocking. Give me the card here. Maybe I should have played Horde Caller. If they have the card unless we pay 2, though, then Horde Caller dies anyway. That's such a bummer. We drew the 1 card in the entire deck that costs more than 5. Just kind of bad RNG here this game. Sacking the lands, drawing the extra cards is a way better play if we draw any of the removal, especially the Withering Torment. The only way sacking the lands is not good is if exactly Vile Mutilator's on top. That's our 1 out to the flyer that costs too much mana to sack lands for. And now I don't even have the life to cast the Withering Torment. Such is the way. 0-1 heading into game 2. Alright, here we are on the draw for game number 2. Super loaded hand here. It is loaded with pretty much all removal, but still. Got a couple Percussionists to get some early damage in, and then Razorkin is the big scary later threat. Another blue-white deck, and they start with a 2-mana bomb rare that guarantees them 2-for-1 worth of value before I can cast my removal spells, because we're on the draw and they're on the play. If we were on the play, we could kill that before it hits us and draws them an extra card, but such is not the way this game. Yep, you always draw the card first. That way, if your opponent finds the removal to kill it on turn 3, you're still up a card in the interaction. Pretty brutal. Kind of had both games start the exact same way. Play against the best colors in the format, and then they play a rare that immediately 2-for-1s us. It's been a rough start today. Last game we got immediately 2-for-1 because we had to exile their card before it drew them any extra cards, and 2-for-1'd us that way, so we had to, you know, sack a creature plus discard a removal spell to kill it. And this is a great trade for us unless we hit a 5 mana or greater spell. Okay, 4 mana spell's a little risky here. If we don't have a land on top or off of the next Percussionist, that's going to be rough. Pretty much just has to be on top. Yeah, well, that's rough. RNGesus is angry at us right now. I have no other spells to play here, so they have a counter. They get to counter a piggy bank. And the saddest part here is Arena showing me everything that would have won last game. Like, here's your answers to the 5/6 flyers. Buffoon? Why didn't you just cast these? Glimmer Burst, great value play. This opponent just is a green multicolor, probably splashy bomb pile, rather than a actual blue-white enchantments deck like it looked like early. What's going on, mana? 3 lands in the top 13. We are running the full 17 with this deck. Alright, that worm is rough. It's another very good 2-for-1 rare, because even if I kill it with removal, it's going to come back from the grave. They have enchantment, creature, and instant engraved, so they need one more card type to just recast this as another 5/5 trample haste. We have not drawn our 1 exile removal spell. The only thing that's castable here is removal, so I think I might as well Withering Torment that. Be pretty happy if they trade with Percussionist, because that'll dig me a card closer to a land. Whether or not it hits it is another thing, but it will get me closer to the land guaranteed. Right, if the top card isn't a land, it's not like this didn't help me find a land, because now the top card's out of the way to try to get to the lands underneath that card. Alright, just get a 3/3 with the Slimy Aquarium. Almost guarantees Delirium. Yep, they've got Delirium for the worm. Okay, Skullcrab is not an issue in the slightest. Our mana really is, though. Here's Glassworks on the face down, jam in. They're down to 11 here. The worm is back, so let's get 2-for-1. Cast another removal spell on it. They mill me 2 lands. There's still non-lands there. Piggy Bank plus Swamp are the mills. Uh-oh, more mills. Land. So they milled 3 of my lands in a row there. I go down to 5 to kill this? Of course. Alright. If I Final Vengeance or Withering Torment this, it is exiled because it has a finality counter on it. So I'm going to save my Final Vengeance for another card that might have a good death trigger or graveyard ability or something. There's commons that will even. Like if they have the 5 mana 5/4 common that does something when it dies, that manifests dread when it dies, that'll be good. $20 cards left. I don't know if it's worth Nowhere to running this Skull Crab instead of just Final Vengeancing the Megalodon and just letting the crab chill. I kind of want to have this around if they play another threat that matters, but I just need 1 more land to just trade off into another threat that's 3 or less toughness. Alright, sure. I'll get rid of the Skull Crab and just make sure that's not going to be a thing. Could have still chosen to sack the Piggy Bank, but at 5 life, even a chump blocker is pretty relevant. The reason to sack Piggy Bank instead of Nowhere to run is to play around them having any threats with Ward or Hexproof. Not a lot of Hexproof. There's the 1 Hexproof trick out of white they could have. Mainly it would be playing around Ward, though. We found our first land draw of the game. It's the 21st card in the deck. But they did mill 3 of our lands off the crab, so we would have found more lands earlier. Alright, let's start slaying I really can't play around the counter unless we pay 2 because we just haven't drawn any mana. Fear of Imposters? Okay, that's a lot less bad. But it mills me 2 lands. How could you do this to me? I lied. Fear of Imposters is actually a huge issue. This is actually just as bad as the counter unless they pay 2, right? So they counter and then give me a 2/2. My 2/2 trades into that 3/2 body, so essentially just a 1-for-1 counter. It's not better or worse for me than the 2 mana counter unless I pay 2. Sure, they've got Unable to Scream. Spend another card on that. Give me a land, Percussion Man. Please. Nope. That is just so indicative of how this game has gone. Sure. Rather trade a 3/2 into their 3/2 than a 5/3, so we're flashing that in. Manifest Dread to push lethal here. Well, we're not dead unless that face down is very big. Even then I could put the piggy bank in front of that. Oh, come on. It's another rare. It's not even like a... Oops, I clicked too much. God dang it. I was going to say, it's not even like a particularly good rare in this position, but the fact that it's even more bombs is sad. Yeah, I clicked too fast. We had to play Amalgam and block Fear of Imposters, but then I'm at 1 life with just no counterattacks anyway. Alright, I technically misclicked myself to death there, so that's obviously a punt. I could have had 1 more turn at 1 life, but that's that 1 more turn at 1 life was not going to be manageable. They had 2 creatures on board. I'd have a single blocker, whatever I cast. So, I mean, I play 1 creature and then die. Yeah. All right. I mean, these first 2 games have been unwinnable. I think we've played them out about as well as we could, except obviously that last turn was pretty bad. And I think our deck is genuinely pretty good. We've just got a bad string of luck to start off this draft. Let's rally, shall we? Turn this 0-2 run into a 7-2. Let's get back in there and fight. All right, here we are on the play for game number 3. Not a lot of threats in this hand, sadly. Just the 1 Percussionist, but we've got removal for their early threats. And this hand cannot have the same issues as last game. It's a 4-lander to start off instead of a 3-lander. It could have the exact opposite issue, though. We could draw literally nothing but lands. That's a possibility. But I have drawn 1 Most Valuable Slayer now, so we know we've drawn at least 1 non-land spell this game. Playing against a black-white deck. Kind of scary deck. It's very high variance and kind of coin flippy. Sometimes they get to discard like a really big creature early and then reanimate it and just explode your face. But other times they don't draw the right pieces together. And they just kind of dirtle around with slightly weaker creatures than most decks. And you just kind of overwhelm them. So we'll see how it plays out. They've got the Murder for our 4-drop, sadly. Okay, never mind. Everything I said about this deck was a lie. They are the Green Blaze, splash everything, draft every bomb rare in the draft pod deck. That was a fantastic draw. Keep the pressure on them here as they are going to have scary late game stuff, being the green color splashy Delirium deck. Wary Watchdog for another blocker. I've got the mana for double removal next turn to keep the board clear. Oh, please don't kill Horde Caller. And at least they had the 2-for-1 themselves to do it. And they had to fully sack a Watchdog and a Final Vengeance. Manifest Dread kind of locks in Delirium for them. Yep. For Spine Seeker to be the 3/3, which is rough. Yeah, I am out of gas, unfortunately. Okay, drawing another Glassworks doesn't make me feel so bad about casting double removal just to hit for 2. I was going to be very sad if I hit like a land here and then I throw Glassworks and a Withering Torment at them just to get 2 damage in. But now I have 2 Shattered Yards to unlock and just start hitting them every turn. I'm pretty into it. If I Torment the Beastie, they get a 2/2 back, so that's not very good. I don't really want to just play a 5/3 on this board either. Yeah, let's start the Shattered Yard win plan. Just unlock these, and if these ping our opponent for 9 before they kill us, then we win. And I think that's very possible. We ping for 1 to get them to 8, then unlock the other one in there on a 4-turn clock. 2 damage a turn, 4 turns in a row would be death. It's probably a little early to chump with Percussionist, because I'm going to spend all my mana on Shattered Yard, ideally. Alright, 4-turn clock. Now I can chomp with Percussionist and spend my mana on whatever it exiles. Spend my mana on a swamp. Yay. Here's Razorkin. This is sketchy. I don't know if I'm out racing at this point. The draws there were land, land. Here's Spine Seeker Centipede for our opponent. I'm gonna block. I think to where I can just fully kill a creature like this. And if the face down flips into something scary, I'll Withering Torment it. If it doesn't, I'll sack a land and draw a card here. Okay, they're not flipping it up. So it's just like a land there. No shot. After I lose my 5/3, I draw Waltz of Rage. However, no shot, I just top deck lethal. That was just like the worst draw and the best draw in a short sequence, which is crazy. All right. Even without the sack to drain them for 2, we still win that. So if we just drew any 3/2, like one of our piggy banks, we could still win. We just played a piggy bank and waltz the other 2 creatures. Chump. And that gives us the time to get 2 Shattered Yard turns of kills, but that Egotist was insane as the draw there. But as soon as I saw that Waltz of Rage, I was like, oh dear god, I'm gonna go Waltz of Rage land and lose. Because I have no creature on board with the way I played it. Luckily, that was not to be the case. We get a little bit of luck to counteract some of that poor luck in the early couple of games. And we are now 1-2, heading into game number 4. All right, game number 4. Decent hand here. Percussionist, Glassworks, their first scary threat. And a Razorkin for our beef at the top end. We are on the draw again. Another Orzhov deck. There's Innocuous Rat. That actually plays pretty well against Percussionist. Oh, Jesus. And Toby, one of the strongest rares in the format, where Glassworks their 4/4 token, but they still got a card worth of value, so they still have Toby around. So they have a way to reanimate Toby here. They've got Rite of the Moth in their hand. Savior of the Small is what it is. So I can never kill this Toby. Is that 4 land draws in a row? Yeah, we are on the draw, so we've drawn 4 cards. Yep. It's getting sketchy. Yikes, the Sporogenic Infection. Kill the Razorkin. If either of these die, the Savior literally just brings them back anyway. So there's no point. I have literally all lands in my hand, so I kind of have to chump and hope to draw something here. Balemark Leech, not terrible. I have technically drawn 5 lands in a row because Balemark Leech was an exile draw. My 5 draw steps have been lands. Like, I just take so much more damage if I do block, because then they get another 4/4. Six for 6, baby! Time to go to the casino! Absolutely unbeatable. Come on, 7 for 7. Lucky 7s, let's go! No! You weren't supposed to show up. Got the hexproof trick. Nope. Well, that can't be good. They just got a bunch of combat tricks in hand. Or they do have the Rite of the Moth and the Savior. Sure. Seems Toby, man. Cool. Yeah, these were supposed to be the draws earlier. We technically drew... Okay, we still drew more lands than spells, but we got close to a 50-50 ratio of lands and spells. But if you draw the lands all in one extended clump, you're still going to die because your opponent gets so much damage in on you early for that. Not to mention, they played one of the best rares in the format and had multiple ways to reanimate it with Rite of the Moth and Savior of the Small, no matter how I played it. Like, I guess I could have traded with the Rat, and then they just get the Rat back too and hit me with the 2/2 manifested card, and I still die. Yeah. Brutal draft today. These games have been just miserable. Overall, this deck is way better than a 1/3 on average. This is a much better deck than certainly our last deck, our 5-color Marina deck, and it gets a worse record. So that's super rough, but I think this deck's genuinely above average for this format by a little bit. And it just drew pretty awfully and ran up against great rares basically every single game. It is what it is. That is certainly part of Magic. A 1-3 record with a great deck is gonna happen. Sad to end off Duskmourn on a little bit of a down note here, but that's okay. We still got some more variety drafts for just a couple more days. And at the time of this upload, Final Fantasy should only be about 2 weeks away. So, really, really cool stuff on the horizon. There's still plenty to look forward to, even if today did not end in a particularly successful draft. I'm still really happy with how I drafted out this draft pod, happy with the deck that I ended up with, and I don't think there was a whole lot I could have changed in the gameplay. That's just how the cards fall today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and are interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.